They're amazing. Taylor McHargue joins as former Rice quarterback. He started a couple of weeks ago when I was out to give us some college football insight knowledge, a former athlete as well on SicEm365 Radio and 365 Sports. And you were you spying on us earlier today?
I was. I enjoyed the NIL talk.
Yeah, you didn't tell me this, Paul.
Well,
we were going to have to be accountable.
Look, Taylor is well prepared.
Yeah.
And look, Taylor, I told you I'd find a highlight, and I had forgotten about that game where Johnny Manziel was suspended, where you guys gave the Aggies a heart attack early on in that thing.
We did. And if it wasn't for my 2 third-quarter interceptions, it probably would have been a little bit closer.
I love your sense of humor, although that didn't make you laugh, but I love your – all right, so you heard us discussing. You heard Todd Berry, AFCA Executive Director. There's always great feedback on the chat room about this. You wanted to kind of give us a little of your own perspective.
Yeah, look, NIL, and we talked about this last week, Paul, NIL it's designed to put some money in kids' pockets. It's designed to be separate from the scholarship, and they've got opportunities to market themselves. And what it's turned into has kind of been weaponized, and it wasn't the intent, and there's no institutional control. The NCAA is pretty worthless in this arena. But there's always going to be the outliers, the mega superstars. You talk about Johnny Manziel. When we played them at A&M, everybody in the stadium, it felt like, had a number 2 jersey on. And the Johnny Manziels and the Tim Tebows of the world, they're going to make a ton of money in college. But for the most part, what it's, I think, really designed to do, and the reason I believed in it, was you're going to have a star player at a smaller Division I school where this is an opportunity for them to make some money doing a radio spot or make some money going and doing an appearance in their whatever town they're in. And I think that's great because there's a lot of these kids that they're not going to go play in the NFL. And a little bit of extra spending money, a couple $1,000 doing some hits and some ads in college, I think that's really what it was designed for. Now with the creation of these collectives, it's just pay for play at the highest level. I mean, your 5 stars and your 4 stars, these kids are just shopping around. Okay, what are you going to pay me to come play for you? And I don't think that was the intent.
Well, and Taylor, my point was, like, it's great that money's available to them, but if you're making that decision just based on who can pay you the most, then you're probably eliminating a lot of other factors in your college choice that, you know, for the rest of the world, you really have to consider. Is this the best place for me to grow into, you know, an adult and for my career and all of those things that if it's just about the bottom line, especially if you're a guy who's going to get money anyway, sometimes you could be splitting hairs.
No, you're exactly right. The problem also, and this is really specific to football, is you have so many guys that think they're going to the NFL. And the truth is, I'm talking about all the way down to a school like Rice, where you'll have kids that were role players, special teams players, and they think they've got a shot to go to the league. And that goes all the way through college football, and I think that's a big reason why you see so many kids transfer. The Athletic put out an awesome piece this week that they tracked every Division I transfer at the FBS level. And there's over 15% of these kids that transfer out of FBS schools that are not playing football anywhere. They didn't land anywhere. And you gave up a full scholarship to hopefully improve your situation. A lot of these kids are just given bad advice. And that's the downside to this, is sort of to your point. The purpose of college football up to this point was get an opportunity to get your school paid for and set yourself up for success after. And it's still 95% of Division I football players, that's what it does. It gives you a leg up. It gets you out of school without any debt, and you get to play a sport at a high level while you do it. The rest of the 5% that are going to make quite a bit of cash while they're there, it's great for them, but it really doesn't impact most of the guys playing college football.
All right, Baylor today began their fall workouts. Some have already done that, depending on the schedule and whatever they can do. And, of course, you know about Blake Shapen taking over the job as the starting quarterback, and Gary Bohannon. Taylor is at USF. How long does it take? They have a young receiving core. Tyquan Thornton's in the NFL, and R.J. Sneed's at Colorado, and there's a few others that have moved on as well. How long does it take? And is it all right now in August and maybe the offseason and not so much once the season begins to gain chemistry?
Well, chemistry, yes, it's going to take. You're not going to come right out of the gate week 1 with everything clicking, especially at the college level. These kids don't have that much time in their fall camp to really get on the same page. And spring workouts were a long time ago, and there's not that many practices there either. It does take a little more time in college as opposed to the NFL, where these are pros, and it's a little easier for them to step into a new system. But I think it does help that Chapin had some experience last year. I think that is critical. I think one of the things that gets overlooked with college quarterbacks is what we're talking about with development. I think the Trevor Lawrences of the world are the outliers, where they jump in and they're immediately ready to go. Most kids at quarterback, especially, it takes them a little bit of time. Go back and look at Colt McCoy when he first got to Texas. That team was good because the team was phenomenal, not because Colt McCoy was phenomenal. And it will take a little bit of time, but there's still a lot of talent on this Baylor roster. Obviously, picked first in the preseason polls to win the conference. But I go back to Chapin getting to play in the Big 12 championship. I think is huge for him to have that experience.
Taylor, last week we talked about some of the maybe like top teams in the Big 12, but we haven't gotten into the ones that, kind of in the middle and that we don't really know about. West Virginia among them, new quarterback in JT Daniels, new offensive coordinator in Graham Harrell. They have been probably affected negatively by the transfer portal more than anybody in the country, save for maybe Tennessee, of people walking out the door kind of in the dead of night. How do you think that they'll respond in a year there that Neil Brown really, really needs to take a step forward?
Yeah, I love Graham Harrell coming in. I think that's really the shot in the arm that they needed. The team last year for West Virginia, not explosive at all in the passing game. They really struggled driving the ball downfield, and I think that's something that between JT Daniels and Graham Harrell, you're going to see that as a point of emphasis. The thing for West Virginia that I'm worried about is it's a tough schedule. I mean, in out of conference this year, they've got to go to Pitt, and I know that's at formerly Heinz Field. I don't know what they call it now, but I know that's an offsite. But still, you got Pitt and then Virginia Tech. Then they go to Texas after that. It's a tough schedule, and then follow up Texas with Baylor right after. If they don't get one of these early games out of conference, this is the type of team that they need something to go well for them in the first half of the schedule. And if it doesn't, I'm afraid this could be one that starts to snowball pretty early on.
When you look at Spencer Sanders at Oklahoma State, they played for the Big 12 title, beat Baylor the first time. And, of course, that's a hell of a defense that he's throwing to, that he threw to too much, actually, with interceptions. What do you see in a guy like that at times it can take your breath away and at times he can frustrate the hell out of you?
You said it best. I remember watching him, I believe, as a sophomore at Texas, and he was played out of his mind. And I think Texas ended up winning that game, but Oklahoma State was in that game because of Spencer Sanders, and specifically then really with his legs. Phenomenal player, all the talent in the world, but the key critical mistakes last year is what handicapped him. I mean, some really untimely turnovers and shooting themselves in the foot when it felt like he was forcing the ball sometimes, almost like he needed to be Superman. If you're an Oklahoma State fan, you just hope that he settles into a rhythm and plays within their system, because it's a team that last year they played such good defense on the offensive side. You just needed to not turn the ball over most games if you were going to have a chance to win. I know defensive coordinator left this year to head to Ohio State. We'll see what happens on that side of the ball. But Spencer Sanders has all the talent in the world, returns a ton of production on that offensive side. So, if you're an Oklahoma State fan, you just hope that he takes that step forward this year.
Taylor, new coach Joe McGuire, who we know well, who was here at Baylor and, of course, at Cedar Hill before that, takes over at Texas Tech and brings a lot of fire and enthusiasm, brings in Zach Kitley as his offensive coordinator. That's a team that was a bowl team that had a bowl win last year. What is the ceiling for Texas Tech this year?
I think the ceiling is probably getting back to 500. They are another team that they've got a tough out of conference. Houston is likely going to be ranked in the top 25. I know they get them at home, but then they got to go to North Carolina State, a team that likely will be right at the top of the table in the ACC this year. This is another team like West Virginia. It's going to be really important for them to get a win early. But going back to the Joey McGuire hire, this was one of my favorite hires in all of the offseason. And he didn't get a ton of attention because Tech was around, they ended up making a bowl game last year. But I love the Matt Wells hire. I never understood, because Tech is a place that you have got to have ties to the Texas High School Coaches Association, and it just never felt like a cultural fit. And Red Raider fans will tell you that was a big reason why. I mean, they had a winning record when he got let go. And Joey McGuire, with his success as a Texas high school coach, I believe it was 4 state championships at Cedar Hill. That's exactly what you need in West Texas, where he's going to be able to have roots in the DFW area, in the Houston area, where you can get these coaches to lean on a kid to say, hey, maybe think about going to play for Joey McGuire. And that is exactly what they were missing with Wells. And I love this hire as an outside looking in, pulling for him at Tech. I'm also interested in their quarterback battle. Shuck got hurt last year, and interested to see who ends up being the guy. I think they've got 3 quarterbacks that are all really talented, but they need to get a fast start. They've got a tough out-of-conference schedule.
No question about it. Taylor McHargue again with us on SicEm365 Radio, 365 Sports. As someone that went to Rice and someone that loves your alma mater, and we know where Rice is right now when it comes to football, and they have USC, I think, right off the top. How much does it mean, the AAU, the endowment, all of the various academic prestige that they have, and where they are now when it comes to football? And you hear, well, yeah, but Stanford or Cal, and of course, great schools. But there is a lot of talk about the academics part of it. If that's the case, that would include Rice, but it doesn't, does it?
Well, Rice has had a pretty unfortunate stretch. I mean, they haven't been to a bowl game since 2014. When I left my senior year, we had just won Conference USA, had a 10-win season, and it felt like a lot of positive momentum. They've gone to 3 straight bowls, and now it's been a few years of being at the bottom of really one of the worst conferences in the Division I level. The step up for them to the AAC is huge. There's a capital commitment from the school to upgrade the stadium. And there's a new president also at Rice that I think is a little more forward thinking with athletics. And I think that's huge. But there's no doubt part of the allure for the AAC was Rice and their top 20 and the multi-billion-dollar endowment you referred to. That's attractive to conferences, whether they'll admit that or not. The key for Rice, though, is find some consistency, get back to some winning ways that we had established when I was there. And there's not a ton of Rice fans, but the ones that are around are passionate. And as an alumni and a player there, I would love nothing more than to see them get back to a bowl game this year.
Taylor, thanks for your time. Look forward to the insight and knowledge every Friday at 4:30. Taylor McHargue, former Rice quarterback, with us, and will be a part of breaking down college football from the weekend coming up and the weekend, and also play before. When we come back at 5.